Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, the CMHC, says the City of Calgary will no longer be in compliance with a federal housing program if Council repeals blanket rezoning. Yesterday on the Eyeopener, we spoke with the Mayor, Jeremy Farkas, about what the repeal might mean for Calgary's share of what's called the Housing Accelerator Fund. The Mayor explained at that point why he thought Calgary would still get the funding.
That the program has always been about outcomes, not one single zoning tool. So if Calgarians take a look at the agreement itself, you'll see there's about a dozen various commitments, only one of which sort of relates to zoning. So if there were penalties, it would be a significantly small amount of what the overall program is.
Now, a city committee received an update on this yesterday, including a new letter from the CMHC, which reads in part, I'm quoting here, Calgary and Canada entered into an agreement on the written understanding that Calgary would eliminate exclusionary zoning citywide and enable a variety of missing middle housing types, which it achieved in April 2024. In order to remain compliant with the agreement, any updated zoning must not reintroduce exclusionary single-family zoning. That's the end of that quote. Now, Ward 4 councillor DJ Kelly joins us in studio. From your understanding, will the city lose federal funding if it repeals blanket zoning?
Well, first, I should probably start by saying I'm not a lawyer. I'm not part of the trade delegation that we had to Ottawa, not part of the negotiating team on that, which actually makes it a little bit easier for me to speak to this because it is a complex question. It looks like it should be a really simple thing. Take a look at the agreement. Does it meet the conditions or not? But when you're dealing with different levels of government and different interpretations of legal phrases, it does get a little more complicated. To answer your question specifically from my individual point of view, it looks like that is exactly what they are saying, is that the funding would be at risk if we were to repeal the blanket rezoning. But that being said, the way that the agreement is actually written, we're hitting all the targets that they're looking for in there. And at the end of the day, that's what we're all looking for, is for more affordable housing in Calgary. And despite having gone through a housing crisis in 2024 and 25, where more people moved to Calgary than any other city in the history of Canada, we've managed to meet those targets and in many cases are exceeding those targets. So that's where it's not, I'm happy to speak in like plain language for Calgarians here to be able to understand what's going on here, because it is admittedly a complex sort of legal argument, if you will.
Sets up the kind of conversation you're going to have when you say good morning and somebody says, I'm not a lawyer. So I take what you're saying, and the mayor and I kind of went around this yesterday as well, recognizing the complexity of it. This is an important one, and we struggled with this yesterday. How much money is at stake here? How do you see that?
Yeah, it's I heard the interview with the mayor yesterday, and I could see that he hesitated to give an exact number, and I actually understand why he hesitated to give an exact number. As it stands right now, if we meet all the conditions in the agreement, there's about $130 million still that would be owed to the city of Calgary. But we've seen in terms of examples like Red Deer, where they actually not only clawed back that, but clawed back the previous money that they had already been given.
City's already received money. There's yet almost $130 million to come. And if that was in trouble, they could hold that back. Now, the example in Red Deer is that they came back to the city of Red Deer and said, not only are we not going to keep making the payments, but we want the money we've given you back.
Yeah, thank you for the clarification, everyone. And it gets a little bit more complicated than that as well, because there are other grants that sort of stack on top of this as well. And this is what we had heard in committee yesterday, is that the short answer to this is we don't know how much money the federal government may look to recoup if we were to repeal the blanket rezoning. That being said, again, our position when we take a look at the agreement is that we're meeting all the conditions within the agreement, so we think that we're due the whole thing. But it's a risk. It's a real question, and frankly, at this point, it's we really appreciated the federal government's letter that they sent us yesterday, because it's been you can deal with a yes, you can deal with a no. A maybe is really hard to work with, and up until that letter, we were dealing with a maybe exclusively. Now that we actually have a no on that front, we have a position that we can actually go and continue to work with our federal partners on to have the conversation about will this or won't this, what would work, what are you actually looking for, etc.
Right. So, okay, the federal partners in this is interesting. I mean, you got the kind of clearly worded letter yesterday. The mayor, Jeremy Farkas, and Councillor Dan McLean were on a delegation that went to Ottawa to lobby the federal government, fact-finding and saying, hey, look, we're meeting the conditions, as you point out, and the mayor does as well. They came back saying notably different things.
Yeah, and I think that's
how do you make sense of that?
Yeah, I think it comes back to exactly what I'm saying. It's a complex issue. It looks from a common sense perspective. You can read the agreement and go, well, there you go. That's black and white. It's a legal agreement. But there are words in that agreement that require interpretation. So, for example, it says when CMHC is satisfied the conditions have been met. Well, what does satisfied actually mean? Because when it says something in there about undertake redesignations, okay, well, in our opinion, we undertook the redesignations. Where it does get a little more black and white is when it says exactly how many housing units are to be built based on that. Those are the things that we are meeting. And so this is why, depending on who you talk to, some folks in the federal government think that, yes, the city's doing a good job and we can continue. And other folks are saying, no, hold up. Like, we actually thought it was going to be because of X. And so this is where it is a little more complicated. And so I think Calgarians should just really know that the city of Calgary is working with our federal counterparts, having conversations, making sure that we have an exact answer to this question as we move forward, especially towards that public hearing at the end of March.
It's interesting, too. The mayor brought up, in various ways, like the will of a lot of Calgarians. I mean, it's complex there, too. But, it was a defining issue of the election, and it was an extremely unpopular policy in a lot of circles, and a very vocal big part of the community said, no, this was a mistake. Elections were won and lost on it, let's say. So how do you start to reconcile there's confusion as part of it, but also there's definitely tension between the city of Calgary and your council and what the federal government is asking us to do. And then there's what Calgarians want.
Yeah, I'd say that where we start with that is, again, everybody, all Calgarians want affordable housing. The federal government wants that. City council wants that. So you start with that as the base point. And certainly this funding agreement is done in that spirit. I will say, we're not all holistic in terms of there's only one way to be able to achieve those particular goals. I myself and a few of the other councillors from areas that blanket rezoning is hitting very hard are not hardcore, steadfast, repeal it. That's the only potential solution. That's what we're taking a look at the public hearing at the end of March. But there are other tweaks that we might be able to make to that particular proposal that would satisfy the federal government a little bit more and still give Calgarians what it is that their election. I admit that is harder. That's incumbent upon us as city councillors to sit down, negotiate, have those conversations about what better looks like so that we can make sure that what we're building in our neighborhoods meets the needs of Calgarians in the future as well as Calgarians right now.